Hi guys, we all have that genre that we love to work in, right? For me, it's hip hop, as you know, but there are a lot of good reasons to expand outside of your comfort zone and produce in genres that you don't normally produce in. For one thing, it can be exhausting to continue to produce in the same genre, just gets kind of repetitive. But it also can help expand your repertoire by exposing you to new styles of sounds and patches and techniques that you can then use to carry over into your preferred genre. I'm going to show you my favorite system for breaking down a new genre that you haven't produced in before, and then we're going to make a little song in that genre and to kind of demonstrate some of the principles that we're going to go through. But it's an easy to use system, and I'm looking forward to sharing with you. Let's get into it. So we're just going to approach this by breaking down a new genre into smaller pieces that are easier to digest when we're doing our listening to popular songs in the genre. That way we know what patterns we need to look out for and what patterns we can replicate when we're actually producing in that genre. The very first thing I like to do is hop over to Spotify or, Apple Music if you use that, whatever you like to use. And I just type in the genre. So I'm going to use reggaeton as the genre that is outside of my comfort zone that I never produce in, just to give you guys an example. So I'll type in reggaeton and then I'll go over to playlists and let's just select this one, for example. So what we're going to do is I recommend that you listen to maybe like the top 10 songs in the playlist and just get a feel for what it is that we're looking for here. And the very first thing that I like to pay attention to is the tempo. Now, I've already gone through and listened to these songs, and what I do is I write down the tempo, and I use an app on my phone called BPM. I think it's just called BPM, yeah. And it just looks like this. And you basically just tap it like that, and it will give you the average BPM of your taps. So what I'll do is I'll do that for the first 10 songs, and then I'll add them up and divide it by 10 so we can get an average BPM. And in this genre, the average BPM is 101, which gives us our perfect starting point because the tempo is what drives the entire song. So if you get that part right, the rest of it will more easily fall into place. So here's an example of what it might look like when you start to keep track of some of these general patterns. You can see that I've got all the BPMs on the left here, and you can, easily average those out if you want to. Whether or not there's a sample, if it's generally dark and sort of in a minor key, if there are vocal samples, or if a big deep bass was used, or if there is a drum break that was used that was generally saturated. So then the more X's there are in this table, the more clear it is that it's a general pattern for whatever it is that you're trying to analyze. The next thing that's important to keep track of are the drum sounds. I like to start with the drum sounds when I'm producing in a new genre because it just helps set the tone for everything else. So what you want to do is listen to your playlist and just keep track of some common sounds that they use, some common patterns that they like to use, and just general descriptions. So for example, in this genre, I have written down that reggaeton likes to use a bright clicky kick, and it's always sort of 4 on the floor, and they'll use a beefy snare or like a rim shot, and the most common pattern is like do 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 do, right? So here's kind of what the basic groove would be. And to help me achieve that kick sound, yes, I have a sort of bright clicky kick, but also I've noticed that in reggaeton production, a lot of time they'll have the hat going at the same time as the kick, which kind of gives it more of a clicky sound. So I have that going as well with this hat. And I just copied over the MIDI from the kick rather, to use for the hat. So we get this kind of sound. They also like to use lots of bongo perks and shakers and that kind of thing. So we're going to spice up this beat and add in more of the percussion sounds to help us get that groove locked in. The next thing I like to think about is the instrumentation that we can actually lay on top of the groove. So what types of instruments are common in that genre? Are we using simple or complex chords? Are we using happy or sad chords? Like what keys are we in? So all these things, just try to keep track of it in general terms. And for this particular genre, it seems like a lot of the stuff in this particular playlist that I've been listening to are sort of spacey, dark, mellow chords underneath like a brighter, kind of more upbeat groove like this. So all we're gonna do is copy this this MIDI track with the piano chords on it onto a new MIDI track, our keys track here. Now when I'm producing in a new genre, I really like to use Analog Lab because you can go through and you can organize all of the presets across Arturia by the type of instrument you're going for. So like a key sound, a pad, a lead, bass, whatever. You can also though go to styles and you can organize it by even the genre that you're working in. So we could literally select a preset from the reggaeton batch, or even using some of the descriptors that we were using, like mellow and dark and spacey. We can use all of those to help narrow down the presets into something that we're looking for. So I found this sort of dark, spacey preset that I really liked. One thing I noticed about the genre is that even though they often use simple chords, the layering is quite rich. And so I just want to add like a nice little pad sound underneath everything else to, help fit that particular description of the genre. So let's drag this down and call it pad. And here's what I went with for the pad here. Kind of a choral type pad. So everything together will sound like this. The next thing I noticed about the genre is that they often use the chords to make like a Perc melody that individually identifies like each note in the chord. It kind of arpeggiates it a little bit to accentuate the chord progression. So let's make something like that too. I have this sound here. Next, let's throw on some bass to kind of help round out the song so far. And what I notice about their bass sounds is that they are sort of like a lot of times subby and sort of wide. And so I'm going to use this deep bass preset that I normally use for hip hop stuff. You might recognize it from, another video I made called The Essential Hip Hop Bass, but it basically sounds like this. So you got some nice saturation on it and some of those higher harmonics that help really round out the sound a little bit. But what I'm also going to do to make it more accurate for the genre is that I'm going to increase this spread value. And that's going to add some detuned voices to the mix so that it's a little bit wider in the stereo image, right? If you have headphones, you'll be able to hear that a little bit better. And basically what the bass does a lot of the time is it will just echo the chords really simply, ideally on the same beat as the kick is hitting. So we're gonna lay down something really, really simple underneath everything. So I came across this cool French horn sound. And I thought it'd be cool to accentuate some of the chords that are actually in this original piano chord progression that I made. But this is just my own personal creative taste talking here. And it's not like it's a requirement for the genre. So don't feel like you're boxed into exactly what everyone else does. Still use your own voice with what you're doing. So let's throw that in there. So it's starting to fill out pretty nicely. The last thing I kind of want to add in is just a nice detail that I've noticed in a lot of these this reggaeton production is that they have these like spacey vocal chops. So I'm just gonna find some vocals here and chop them up and add some reverb to them, just to kind of hang out in the background and make the whole song a little bit richer. So I was thinking something like this. if we add some delay and some reverb on there, it'll sound like this. And then if we throw it into the mix with everything else, it'll sound like this. So it sounded pretty cool. We basically have all of the raw elements in place, but now it becomes a question of how do we structure the songs? And this is where it really helps. You'll notice at the top, I did a little bit of prep work here, and I basically imported a song from that playlist, and I like to divide up the song into different sections. So I color code it. So light blue is the intro, and then blue is basically the verse. Then we've got the pre, hook, post, and outro. Then what I like to do is when something changes in the song, I'll rename the clip. In this case, the intro is just the chord and the perc sounds that we made, and then they add the rim shot, and then it's kick bass rim shot, and so forth. And so what you do is you basically subtract some of the elements that we've made in our main section to fill out the rest of the song. And the cool part about this genre too is that it tends to be pretty consistent in terms of the groove, so not a lot changes. So I can actually just drag this Perc Melody over here, and we can also drag some of our main chords as well. Right, and then we can grab our rim shot here and drag it over to our new section. Next up is the kick. And then the bass as well. So once we're able to break down the genre into smaller subcategories like the tempo and the musicality and the instrumentation and the structure, it's easy to apply those while still using our own musical taste to be creative. I mean, there's so much to learn about music from all around the world, and the more we learn, the better we'll get. So if you guys have any questions about this systematic breakdown of a new genre, let me know down below, and we'd be happy to get back to you. And as always, happy music making, and we'll see you in the next video. Peace.